Well, good afternoon to all of the subscribers of the Global Energy Association. Although today I have to confess that I don't know what to say properly. Is it a good afternoon or a good morning? Now, it's good morning in Russia where I am.
Yeah.
And our distinguished guest, Xinghuo Yu, is in Australia, which is many, many hours away. It's good afternoon to you, presumably.
7 hours ahead of Moscow.
Good. Right, so let me first of all kill everyone around with a short description of what you're being, or why you've been shortlisted. So people who are not PhDs in physics and mathematics may find it difficult, but we'll paraphrase and explain everything to you. So, Dr. Xinghuo Yu has developed a highly regarded expertise in cyber physical energy systems and a new conceptual framework which will be very important for the world's energy future. Cyber physical systems are systems of collaborating, and here's the part which a lot of people will fail to comprehend. Cyber physical systems, CPS, are systems of collaborating computational entities which are in intensive connection with the surrounding physical world and its ongoing processes, providing and using at the same time data accessing and data processing services available on the internet. Well, I'd imagine that we've lost half of our viewership now, but let's come back to normal life now. Is it about the Internet of Things?
Yes, it is a special Internet of Things. You know, I always say that the Internet brings so many things to our change of life, but also bring a revolutionary change to the industry processes. That's a very typical example. But this Internet of Things are very different from any others. I always use the example of this acrobat troop in the circuits. You know, you have a few bicycles and you have people, 10 or 20 people on it and circling around the stage. So that's actually the power system. It's a very special power system. That's actually because if you using that example, you can see how challenging the power system it is to maintain that you know, the things connected, things responded, because you require this kind of a dynamic balancing to be able to move around. So I think I would say that this is perhaps the most difficult Internet of Things you'll ever deal with. But of course, the reward will be enormous if you do it right.
When we're talking about a circus and the bicycle being driven, whom do you envisage? A clown on the bicycle or a well-disciplined bear? I'll interpret my question.
Let me put this way. At the present time, if we use the old power system scenario, the bicycle would be the generator, you know, the coal power, nuclear, and then they have it enough to be synchronized, means they rotate in the same time, because that's the only time you deliver the real power for us to use. And you have all these users on top of it. Clown, I would say, you can consider clown as a stimulator, right? Stimulating of the behavior of the participants, or could be distractor. So it depends on how you see it, but it would be certainly a very useful in this kind of environment.
The reason why I made this comparison is because smart grid technologies give us opportunities, but they also give us challenges. Yeah. It is a great blessing, but it's dragging along, it's a problem of security. Yeah. So a clown, and I stress the words, which may be mad or may have very bad intentions, may try to organize a cyber attack on the grid. Yeah. What could be done? What should be done? What's to be done to prevent things like that?
Well, if we use this you know, acrobat troop, then you realize how important, how hard to protect the system. So I always say that you never have a perfect system. You just have to be ahead of those people trying to attack, because those people attacking are not just the ordinary people. There has to be very highly sophisticated, skilled person, deliberately trying to sabotage your system. So there's actually usually two types of systems. One is that we usually know that, you know, like just like our computer, you know the typical virus, and you set up software alert if something come along, and then you just shut them down. Another way, which is new, we've been doing some work, is that just like humans, you know, you look at the behavior. The behavior becomes so suspicious. You watch it over time, and then you alert system that that particular behavior should be stopped. So there's lots of work in those areas, but you know, it's you will never get an absolute solution, but you just have to be always ahead of any development technology.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Let's talk about renewables.
Yeah.
Well, let me first of all remind some of our listeners, subscribers, about a photo, a famous or rather infamous photo of a diesel generator in the middle of an Australian desert, which is being used to charge electric cars. So they invent electric cars in order to save the planet from the pollution. But instead of that, in order to charge them, you actually put a diesel generator in the middle of the desert. Well, that was a infamous photo, but it takes us to the question of the main problem of renewables. And that is, of course, the problem of demand and decline of power during the day. So you can switch on a diesel generator and charge your car, but you can't switch off the sun, especially in countries like Australia. Is Australia going to adopt massive scale renewable integration, which may have a significant impact on frequency stability because of the intermittent nature of renewable sources?
Well, Australian government on both sides of politics has been taking a cautious approach, partly because you have to make sure that the system not collapsing until you found a solution to deal with the intermittency of the renewable energies. Over the last 2 years, look at some data. There's a dramatic increase of adoption of a solar panel. It's over 50% over last
well, inevitably,
year.
Especially in your part of the world.
Inevitable. But the challenge is that how do you ensure that the whole smart grid have the capability to deal with those kind of intermittent, drop or increase? So that's actually is very much challenge. I like the idea, the example you take. This is one of the things, that's why we written, some of my collaborators, we wrote another article. We believe that smart grid is a bit too narrow in the way that if you look at the energy, you probably has to look at when the source are still underground, the coal, the oil, the uranium, and then you look at the process from that translate into electricity form or hydrogen form or whatever form, and then from there to the user. So we believe that in the future, I think smart grid will be a component, but in the future, smart grid will not be the only form. There are many other forms, many other energy sources. We actually classify, there's actually three types of energy. One is the primary energy, that's very raw material. There's secondary energy, which is usually the electricity form, electricity or hydro, and there's the user energy. So I think we have to take a holistic approach to look at the energy, and I think that's the future.
What about the past and the present for countries like Russia and Australia in particular, the coal?
Well, until we have, currently, we have like in Australia, we still have this kind of sort of short-term, immediate goal to ensure that you have the base supply of energy, because you got this company, the factory require that. So we just have to wait until the technology mature enough, and then you can do the switch. There's two ways. One is you just make it cleaner, the coal power fire, but of course there's always pollution. But then you may have to look at the nuclear power. That's very controversial in Australia, even so we have the richest, deposit of uranium. So I think for the planet over the many years, generations, eventually we have to move out of those kind of coal power to reduce the pollution. But in the immediate term, we still have to use it just to ensure that we still have a strong economy to grow. Because people want to live a better life.
Well, this is not your specialty, of course, but I've been talking to some of the coal producers recently, and they tell me that the forecast is such that Colombia, which is a major coal producer, will soon cease being a major coal producer just because of the deposits which are being explored actively. And it's Russia and Australia which will dominate the market. So it's an interesting political well, let's put it this way, philosophical question. Will the governments refrain from helping their exporters to absorb this market, which will be empty following the disappearance of Colombia, or will the renewable-oriented tendency predominate? Any thoughts on that?
Well, if you look at Europe, like Germany use lots of renewables, but they also rely on nuclear energy from France, just in case if there's this intermittent energy. So I think until we have this kind of secured, the renewable energy source, you probably still have to rely on it. But I hope it won't take many years to reach that stage.
Well, we'll see. I'm still concerned about the coal miners, but that's another question.
Yeah.
Coming back to the previous question, can smart grids administer the system in such a way that even with unreliable renewable energy sources, you can still guarantee the stability of frequency and the stability of supply?
It can, yes. What we've been, one of my key sort of research activities is look at this artificial intelligence technologies, and also look at those kind of intelligent species. For example, birds. Birds doesn't have much intelligence, but if you look at birds flying, simple intelligence, just look at each other, they can fly in particular patterns. So we actually trying to use those ideas, inspire to create this kind of intelligent entities so they can talk to each other, just like the human society's animal colony. They actually they move along according to a few rules. I think it can be done. I mean, if you look at the AI development, look at the understanding of how species evolve, interact, and then eventually we will have that kind of system. But I won't call the smart grids, because smart grid, the concept is still very much on the infrastructure, deliver the high voltage.
Artificial intellect, rather.
Yeah, yeah. You would have different form of energy sources. I've seen like in the US, they have started have some of the prototype system. Basically, it's kind of a DC network, and you can easily plug in and plug out. You could become supplier or user at your wish. So but then the system has to have intelligence to respond to this random in and out. So there's going to be a very challenging task, technological development to be done in the future.
I was listening to you now. I shouldn't be saying that, but you and I are from countries where Marxism, Leninism is something that we were learning in our childhood, not any longer in Russia. But the phrase which comes to my mind is a quote from Lenin, who in 1922, I think, 21, said that the socialism is a combination of Soviet power and total electrification. But I shut my mouth.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yes, that's why the Chairman Mao was following that, pushed so hard of modernization of China. That's actually.
Yeah, imagine you had similar slogans on the walls.
He used that. He used that. Yeah, yeah. But he also added another one. The communism is a beef and the bread, because that's actually at that time is a very shortage.
I mentioned we share some of the reflections, but let's not sink into it, because otherwise we'll be we'll have an endless conversation to begin with.
Yeah.
Now, not lastly, I have one more question from myself, but here's a question from someone in our association who helps me with these chats. Hello, Sophia Morgan. And here's a question from her, and I quote: "What draws attention in your work on preventing another threat is fires. You have proved that even 20-year-old wooden poles could develop high fiber porosity, conductive to fires. This significant finding has prevented and will continue to prevent potential bushfires, which result in huge losses in lives. Example in latest events in Australia." Any thoughts on that?
Well, that was a surprising research we have done, because Australia, as you know, that's the huge, vast bushland. And you have this kind of old timber, wooden coal fires, and the industry practice, after 30 years, they replace it. But what we found is even 20 years, you start got a problem. Actually, one of them, 2009 Victoria bushfire, which killed over 100 people, was because of this kind of a wooden cross arm caused the fire and the fall on the bush, and then then you cause whole bushfire. So I think it was a very encouraging, because eventually industry realized that they just change their practice, change their policy, which I think it's good to hear. Our results actually can make some impact. But of course, that in future they are talking about new different pole, like the concrete, and all other, the chemical material type of thing, which is probably won't have. But those are things quite expensive.
No, they are interesting.
Yeah,
I had never thought about it before that conversation. Very lastly, of course, we wish luck to all of the people who've been shortlisted for the prize this year.
Yeah.
Let me once again explain to our subscribers that on the 7th of September, the International Awards Committee will meet and decide the fate of the 15 people who've been shortlisted out of the record number of nominations this year. 20 countries, about 200 nominations, if memory serves me well now. Our international committee is an independent body, cannot be influenced by the management of the association. It's up to them. But let's imagine that we are present at the International Awards Committee meeting. How would you recommend yourself?
Well, it's up to the committee, but certainly I think we have done some quite unique thing, to improve the use of energy in the world. I hope that I'll be the successful one.
Okay. Good. Dr. Yu, thank you so much.
Thank you.
What's the Chinese for thank you?
谢谢.
谢谢, that's it. I was going to say ni hao, but ni hao is for hello. 谢谢. Thank you, Dr. Yu. 谢谢, and well, let's keep in touch.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.